Hello, this is part 2 of my EQ8 tutorial. I just want to give you a nice, easy beginning lesson to help you get acquainted and not feel overwhelmed with the software. EQ8 is actually having a month-long Black Friday sale, so if you've thought about purchasing before, this is your chance. The software is 25% off for the month of November using coupon code November. And I am an affiliate, so I have posted my affiliate link in the comments in the description. So if you purchase and use my affiliate link, I may receive a commission, and that's just a great way for you to support me so I can continue putting out these videos, and I appreciate your support. So let's learn how to turn a block into a quilt and how to print the pattern so we can actually make a block. In the future, we'll get more complicated as we go along, but I really just want to start nice and easy and get acquainted with some buttons and give you some encouragement to experiment and have fun and learn as you go. Let's go over a couple more buttons and settings today. If we're drawing a block, we're on this page, we see our grids. We know our tools at this point, so pick, edit, line, arc I barely mess with, and grid I really don't mess with. So when you're doing foundation paper piecing, you're pretty much always going to use the same tools. It's only when you get into applique or traditional piecing that you might use other tools. But let's say we have drawn a block, so I'm going to very quickly draw a block here. And then we'll talk about how to color it, how to turn that into a quilt, and how to print it. So I'm going to change this first line because remember I didn't have my snap to grid points turned on, so let's just redo that one and make it straight. I don't know why it matters, it just makes me happier. So we have our block. It's a simple block. It is asymmetrical, but it'll work for now. So we'll go to the color tab and add some colors in just randomly here. Okay, actually let's change that one. Okay, so when you're coloring, you have lots of options for colors. You can either choose fabrics or actual shades. So if you want to use solids, or if you just need to get a good idea of what it'll look like in different tones before you actually go choose your fabric, you can use solids. If you don't like the fabric selections here, because what comes standard here is a little limited. This is when we'll use our library. So EQ8 comes with a library of fabric, and it's updated because every month they come out with a new collection that you can download for free. So for instance, I don't like all of them, so every once in a while I'll see one that I like and I will download that. These are some reproduction prints and I have them in my fabric stash, so I thought it would be nice to have them in EQ8. So if you see a fabric in here you like, let's see, what do I like? So let's go to, let's look under themes. We've got paisley, text, oh that's fun, floral, animals and bugs, oh that would be super cute. So I'm going to select one. I like these goldfish, and I'm going to add it to the sketchbook. It disappears because I've added it to the sketchbook. I don't need to see it here anymore. Let's select a couple more and just keep adding to the sketchbook. Need it tighter. Okay, I'm going to close the library, and now when we scroll to the end of our fabrics here, you'll see that the fabrics we chose are now in the selection. So we can add those to our block now. Oh, and that's completely different than what I was expecting. But I like it. How about a lobster? So now that we have our coloring done, these buttons over here, let's talk about those. So we can choose a new project, we can open an existing project. We don't want to do either one of those. We want to keep working on the block we're working on. These two right here, we can add a project to the sketchbook. In this case, we finished this block, we like the block, we're happy with it. We can add it to our sketchbook and it'll save it for us so that if we come in later, if we want to edit it, we can save an additional copy of our block and then edit that copy without losing the original. We can view our sketchbook. So here is the block that we just added. This is what we were working on the other day. And then there's some generic and standard blocks included. So if we wanted to start with one of these in a project, we absolutely could. So we have undo, and then this is our zoom in, zoom out. We can refresh, or we can fit to work table, so just make it the actual size. So if we're gonna zoom in, sometimes if you are drawing and something looks not quite right, you can zoom in and figure out what exactly went wrong, or you can zoom in to work on something a little more detailed. So I can zoom in and get real tight in here. You know, maybe I have a real detailed area that I need to work on. You can zoom in for that. I'm gonna undo and then fit to work table to zoom out. Now, if we want to turn this block into a quilt, maybe we like this block, we want to make it multiple times, that's where we'll go to our quilt work table. So here we'll design our quilt, we'll design the layout we want. So I'm on the new quilt tab, I'm going to choose just a regular setting. I don't want it diagonal, I just want a regular setting. Then we'll go to layout and we'll choose our size. Now, right now it's saying that our finished block is 9 inches. So we can change this and make it an 8-inch block. We can make it a larger block. And then you can choose how many blocks you want. So as you choose and change your number of blocks, it'll change your measurements. So if we want a 48-inch quilt, or a 56-inch, or let's make it a 64 by 64. So we've got 8 blocks across and 8 blocks down. Do we want sashing with our blocks? We can use these toggles to give ourselves some sashing. And maybe we do. I don't know why not. Let's try it. That also changes the size of our quilt. So now we have a 74.5-inch quilt. That's before we add borders. So we can add borders and we can really play around with the style here. There's lots of different options, and these can be really cool when you have like maybe you have a really cool quilt and you just need a more than typical border. You need a border that'll really stand out, that'll really set off the quilt. These are a lot of fun to work with. So you can choose a number of different styles of borders. You can even, and this gets a little complicated, but you can even put a block inside a border. So if you're using, like let's say we have a pretty plain border, you can then add a pieced block into that border section. And again, it gets a little complicated, but it's a lot of fun to play with. So I encourage you to come in here and just play with it and have fun with it and experiment and see what happens. So once we have our border style chosen, we can, I'm going to click all because this locks so that they all will increase at the same amount. So let's make it a 3-inch border. There we go. It's a more substantial border. And you can adjust so that, you know, if you are the kind of person that wants your border lines to line up with your sashing lines, you absolutely can adjust that and play around with that. That's completely up to you. Let's just go into the design part for now. So on the design tab, we'll see in the sketchbook, we have our block. So this is the, I think it's a 9-inch block. So, but it'll fit into the 8-inch block that we told it. So we're gonna just add these blocks in. Once you get the block in, you can use these tools. So you can erase it, you can rotate it, you can flip it. You can choose a fabric. So if I wanted to add some plain blocks in between, there's a way to do that. We'll do that later. You can also add different blocks from the library. So there's several different libraries. The fabric library, the block library, there's several different libraries to access. So you can even choose an already programmed block and add that in. So, oops, we didn't add it to our sketchbook. So add a sketchbook. Now it's in here. There we go. So you can play around and have fun. See how I clicked the sashing accidentally, but it added that block, squeezed it into the sashing, which could actually be really cool and really fun, depending on what you have in mind. So let's use the erase block and get that one out of there. Once you have your blocks placed, you can use the fabric. So up here in the fabric tools, you can add fabric as your sashing. You can also add colors if you just want solids here as well. You can do really whatever you want. It's just a lot of fun to come in here and play with it and just see what you can create. Let's go back to block tools because I want to show you can rotate a block. So if you have a bunch of the blocks that are the same, you can rotate them and see what it would look like if you do a random order. Let's get rid of these sashings. Let's just get rid of the sashing. I want to see what the blocks would look like next to each other. There we go. So I decided that I don't want those. I'm going to just rotate this one block and see what happens if I just rotate and kind of give myself a little pinwheel orientation like that. So you can play around with it, have fun with it, and if you get to an orientation or a design that you like, add that to your sketchbook. And then you can view, so your sketchbook contains quilts and blocks and fabrics, colors, photos if you add photos, and then thread and embroidery if you use those tabs, but we won't get into those. So let's actually go to our block work table. If we're going to make a quilt, we need to print our block so we can make the block. So go to your block work table, and then we've colored it, we like the orientation, we like our block, we're happy with our block. Now we're gonna go print it. So when you go to the print tab, you've got options for printing. You can print it as the block itself. So this is like an image of the block. It's really nice for cover pages or just to see what it looks like. So let's click on this first, block, and then we can choose our size if we need to. I'm gonna choose a custom size just so it fits on a single page. And then we can choose outline drawing. So if you want a coloring page, this is the way to do it. Quilting stencil, applique pattern, or showing fabrics. I wanna see what the block actually looks like. And then on options, we have a couple options here, but I don't want any of those. And you can turn on block outline and patch outline, but in this case, I really want to see what it looked like sewn. So I don't want to see the delineation and the lines. I just want to see what the fabric will look like. So I'm going to click preview, and there's our block. How cute is that? I love it. So let's go print it so we can actually sew it. So we can choose foundation, rotary cutting, or templates. We want foundation because we are foundation paper piecing this block. You absolutely could, in this case, rotary cut it, traditionally piece it, but that's not what I want to do. So I'm going to click on foundation, and in this case it has auto-filled for me. So let me actually make this a little bigger. So we have just a one-page block, which I love when that happens, and it has auto-filled our numbers. In this case, it has 1, 2, 3 going across, and then 4, 5. I actually might want to change it so that the largest block is number 1. It's not a huge deal, it could work either way, but I do want to change it. So I'm going to click change numbers, and then I'm going to click on the one that I want number 1. So I want this one number 1, and now it has changed the other numbers for me. So I'm going to click finish. We're done, it'll autofill the rest. We can look at the sections tab, but in this case we've got one section and I love it. And then we'll go to options. Here you can either use the size that is in the block work table, or you can choose your own size. Oops. The block that we used in the quilt is an 8-inch block. So if we want to make the quilt that we designed, we'll change it to 8 inches. That'll also make it fit nicely on a page, so we don't have to paste together anything. We can choose our seam allowances. So we definitely want seam allowances, and we can choose solid or dotted. If we click this, it'll be solid seam allowances. It's not a big deal either way. Since we're doing foundation paper piecing, we do want to make sure that a couple settings are turned on. So we only have one section, so the separate units is not as important here. but the print numbering and the mirror, because we're sewing on the back side of the quilt, essentially, it's backwards, it's foundation paper piecing, we want the mirror turned on so that when we sew it and look at it from the right side of the quilt, it's actually what we designed. It's not a big deal in this block, but in any other complicated block, it would be a big deal if we don't mirror it. So, and I want it color filled because I want it to fill in the colors that when I'm sewing, I know what color is supposed to go in the piece that I'm sewing. So we can choose our line thickness, we can choose how many we want. In this case, I just want one that I can then later choose how many copies I'll print. So I'm going to just leave it at 1. Now I'm going to click preview, and you see actually the 8-inch block with seam allowances does not fit onto one page. I'm going to close and change that because to me I think it's pretty important that it fits on a single piece of paper, and I think you could make it bigger, but I just don't think it would be worth it. So 7-inch block now, let's see if that actually fits on one page. So you can adjust either the block or the quilt. If I was really working on a project, I would go back to the quilt on the work table and change the block size to represent what actually fits on the page so that I can be consistent, so that I know how many blocks I need to get the size of the quilt I need. This looks really good, and do you see how it filled in coloring for us? So if we print this in color, we will know what color goes where. A lot of times when I'm designing patterns, even though I print it in color, I will also use a PDF editor to actually write in a color name. So if I have 5 different colors in a quilt, I will, either name the color, like this would be red, or I would assign it a symbol or a letter. So this might be, if it's background, I might put a BG here because I might print it in black and white. A lot of people don't want to print their patterns in color. That's a lot of ink to be used, but I can print it in color. I can print it as a PDF in color, and then on my computer I can see the colors and I can label it. And then if a customer downloads the pattern, they'll see it on their computer in color as well. But once they go to print it on their computer, if they don't want to leave it in color, if they want to print in black and white, they'll also have that symbol. So EQ8 will give you the shading here, but I don't actually rely on the shading when I'm making a quilt. I will add my own coloring codes in. So if I click to print, I have set my default printer as a PDF printer. If you click to print, you might actually send it to your actual printer. So you might want to adjust your settings on your computer so that your default printer is a PDF printer. And I won't go into how to do that here because printers and computers are all different. So it will vary for you. But if you're using this to design patterns to sell or to give to people, you will want to figure out how to set a PDF printer as your default printer, because otherwise it'll just send it directly to your printer and you have one copy. Now I guess technically you could send it to your printer and then make copies off of that one copy, but you won't have the digital version to be able to edit from there. So that's how we make a block, that's how we print a block. So I encourage you to design a block and add it to your sketchbook, and then add it onto your quilt work table and have fun with orientation and borders, and just experiment. Don't be afraid, because in this case it's just a program. You're not going to mess anything up. You're not going to waste fabric. So experiment and have fun, and I will see you next time.